Aksamit as he presents evidence that demands a verdict. Evidence that demands a verdict.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mom.
You know,
Good morning.
I like being up here. I like talking to you guys. And I brought a stool today, so I'm going to try something a little bit different today. Let me get right into it. You know, the beauty of Toastmasters is there is a public forum that people can bring ideas, concepts, philosophies into an area, and we can discuss them, and we can give each other feedback on those different philosophies. And over the past 11 months, I have been a very active member of this club, and I have heard the hearts of many of you and the passions that you have. Obviously, if we have a passion about something, we're going to expound on it. We're going to try and come across, and at some level, it's argumentative. We're trying to sway you over to our viewpoint. We're trying to get you to see, just like Lynette did this morning, we're trying to get you to see what it is that is burning inside us. And so, over the last 11 months, I have heard all kinds of different philosophies. I've heard self-healing, New Age, political appeals, Tea Party, emotionalism. But my friends, this is going to be the last speech that I do here. I will no longer be coming to Toastmasters after today. And it is somewhat sad that I say that, but it is time for me to go do some other things. And I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to all of you for the time that we've had together. I've enjoyed it.
Doesn't have to be, Mark.
I know it doesn't have to be. But I have a family that needs me right now. I have a teenage son that's needs me. So I'm going to ask you, okay, I'll pull it back together here. I'm going to ask you, oftentimes I've been accused of being preachy. Yeah, me? I'm willing to admit that. But I'm going to ask you, as I bring put some material before you again, once again, that you will just give me the opportunity to be preachy one more time. I think I have earned that with you. I think all of us in this club have come up higher in the 11 months that I've been here. I know I've improved as a speaker. And I think the majority of us have. The ones that have been here a while, we've really gotten to be pretty good speakers. And I really appreciate the professionalism and the level of articulation that I hear come from my fellow Toastmasters. So let me kind of pull myself back together here a little bit. You know, I consider myself somewhat of a thinker, and most of the speeches that you have heard from me are very thought-provoking. At least I believe they are. I try to get people to think outside the box. I try to get them to understand concepts and philosophies that maybe are not popular, maybe not popular in a cultural sense, but these philosophies exist nonetheless. And so that is my intent here this morning, is to bring another issue to the fore, have you examine that issue in the light of the evidence that's presented here this morning. And this is probably one of the toughest ones I've ever done. And I'm going to be able to do it. I thank you, all of you, as I mentioned earlier, for your these past 11 months. It's been fun. I've had a good time. You know I have a good time here. You know I have a passion for this. Well, as our illustrious Toastmaster alluded to, there were three initial questions that I presented, or that he has presented to the group, and those are, what kind of world am I living in? What do I see around me? The second one is, why is it the way it is? What are the components, what are the mechanisms that cause our world to be the way that it is right now? And probably the biggest one is, if there is change, will this change be for the better? Or will it be for the worse? We live in a changing world. We live in very exciting times. It's okay, Tara, just let it go. You know, it takes an honest person to ask those questions. And probably the most important conversation you will ever have in your life is with yourself. You will ask these hard questions. You will look at yourself in the mirror and you will say, who am I? What do I stand for? What is my world and how does it affect other people? So the series of thoughts that sometimes occur are even further than that. This could be, who am I? What should I be doing once I find out who I am? Where am I going? That's always a good one to answer. But ultimately, is there a purpose to my life? Is there a purpose in all of what we know as life? And you've heard my speech regarding James, how he has totally turned our family upside down. We now find ourselves dealing with issues we don't really want to, but nonetheless, we have to. It's something that I believe a providential God has put James in my life for a specific purpose, and that purpose is to see me grow. And as I mentioned earlier in my speeches, I can either be better or I can be bitter. Huge choice. But let's talk a little bit further about some of these ultimate issues, because we really do need to grapple with some of these issues at some level. And the issue that I want to talk about is probably not a very popular one, but I'm going to talk about it because I have license this morning. That's right, Ben, I have license this morning. The first issue I'd like to talk about is the existence of God. Not politically correct. Very, very controversial. But let's look at it. Let's just talk about this for a little bit. Is there evidence that would suggest that there is a God? If we look outside these doors and we look at the red rocks and we look at the sky and the earth and everything that is created, is there enough evidence to suggest the possibility that there could be a creator? I believe there is. That is my personal belief, that there is enough evidence there to suggest that there is a creator. I know that I did not create it. I know that Ted did not create it. And at some point, by faith, I have to acknowledge that there is a creator. If there is a creator, does he establish a moral code? Mark, what are you talking about? Moral code. If there is this God, is he a good God? Is he a bad God? Does he throw lightning bolts at people that he doesn't like? I believe he is a moral God, and I believe he is a moral law giver. That is to say that it would be wrong in God's eyes for me to go and kill Richard. There's a moral code that all of us adhere to at some level. This testifies to the existence of a God, I believe. But let's look at the nature of man. Let's talk about who he is, this created being. Is he capable of moral judgments? Absolutely. Is he capable of good works of art, singing, music, creation? Absolutely. But he is also capable of evil. He is also capable of, at some point, hurting or violating the moral code that God has set forth. We see this in wars. We see this in murders, theft, stealing, covetousness, lying. It's not a popular topic. But as I work through this speech with you, my last speech here, I want us to consider honestly the information that I'm presenting to you. Every week, somebody moves this thing. Oh, that dreaded book. Oh, the dreaded book. This is a Bible. This is what I believe is the foundation of what we call the Judeo-Christian value system. This is a value system that Americans have held for over 200 years. Founders of this country clearly use the word creator, that all men are endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights. We've heard that before. This is a book that talks about a creator. It talks about a series of relationships with men. This book is not a popular book. This book has been kicked out of schools. This book has been shunned in various circles. Very controversial book. And as soon as you start bringing or talking Bible to a group of people, a certain level of uncomfortableness occurs. And I'm not really sure. Wait a minute. I know exactly why. Yeah. Man has a problem. Man's problem is that he's dirty. That all of us have sinned. All of us have broken God's moral code. And there's a verse in the Bible, and I want everybody to hear it. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever would believe on him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. We're talking about heaven. The same controversial book also says in the book of John, Christ testifies to himself, I am the way, I am the truth, and I am the life. No man comes to the Father except through me. Very, very narrow. Very, very unpopular. But you know something? There's a bad side to all of this. I've given you the good side. Anybody remember Paul Harvey? We're all old enough. We've heard, what was it? Now the rest of the story. Right?
You bet.
Remember that? Paul Harvey passed away in 2009. A very, very interesting man. Very influential in American society and American culture. For over 40 years, that man was a voice of reason and sensibility. And I miss him. As a matter of fact, the day that I heard Paul Harvey had died, I shed a tear. I saw an American icon pass from the scene. But Mr. Harvey blessed us. He blessed us with a program that was aired in 1965. As I conclude this message, I'd like to read that. It is titled, If I Were the Devil. If I were the devil, if I were the prince of darkness, I would, of course, want to engulf the whole world in darkness. I would have a third of its real estate and 4/5 of its population, but I wouldn't be happy until I had seized the ripest apple on the tree. So I would set about, however, whatever it took to take over the United States. I would subvert the church first. I would begin with a campaign of whispers. With the wisdom of a serpent, I would whisper to you as I whispered to Eve. Do as you please. To the young, I would whisper, the Bible is a myth. I would convince them that man created God instead of the other way around. I would confide that what is bad is good and what good is square. To the old, I would teach and pray after me, Our Father, which art in Washington. And then I'd get organized. I'd educate authors in how to make lurid literature exciting so that anything else would appear dull and uninteresting. I'd threaten TV with dirtier movies and vice versa. I'd peddle narcotics to whom I could. I'd sell alcohol to ladies and gentlemen of distinction, and I'd tranquilize the rest with pills. If I were the devil, I'd soon have families at war with themselves, churches at war with themselves, and whole nation at war with themselves, until each in its turn was consumed. And with the promise of higher ratings, I'd have mesmerizing media fanning the flames. If I were the devil, I would encourage schools to refine young intellects, but neglect to discipline emotions. Just let those run wild. Until you knew it, before you knew it, you'd have to have drug-sniffing dogs and metal detectors at every schoolhouse door. This is 1965, ladies and gentlemen. Within a decade, I'd have prisons overflowing. I'd have judges promoting pornography. Soon I could evict God from the courthouse, and then from the schoolhouse, and then from the houses of Congress, and then in his own churches, I would substitute psychology for religion and deify science. I would lure priests and pastors into misusing boys and girls and church money. If I were the devil, I'd make a symbol of Easter as an egg and as Christmas a bottle. If I were the devil, I would take from those who have, and I would give to those who wanted, until I killed the incentive of the ambitious. What do you bet I could get whole states to promote gambling as a way of getting rich? I would caution against extremes in hard work, in patriotism, and moral conduct. I would convince the young that marriage is old-fashioned, that swinging is more fun, that what you see on TV is the way to be. And thus, I could undress you in public, and I could lure you into bed with diseases that there are no cure for. In other words, if I were the devil, I'd just keep on doing what he's doing. 1965. Ladies and gentlemen, look at your world. Is there evidence to consider? Is there evidence to support the fact that maybe we as a culture have been listening to the devil? Each one of you this morning has heard a brief presentation of the gospel. If you understand your need for a Savior, I want you to call me. I will be glad to pray with you. If you have received Christ as Savior and you're not living the way you should be, I would be glad to pray with you as well. It's not easy what I said this morning. It's very, very hard. It wasn't easy. This was not an easy speech. I knew it wasn't going to be popular. It was going to be very hard to do. And I understand that we have been lied to, that there is one true God, and that is the God of the Bible. If you understand your need for a Savior, my phone number is on these cards. Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster.